Highway to Hell edition on this Manic Monday. How are we doing, everybody? I'm doing well. I'm not doing as well as the Lions last night. Woo! 15 and 14 and 2, whatever the record is. They get home field advantage and they get the bye. Let's go. I'm all for it. Let's go Lions, even though I'm a Packer fan. That was such a cool vibe last night. I'll get into the game in a second. What a cool vibe that was, man. The atmosphere, the lighting, everything was bomb. I've been to Detroit. I went there last year for the Raider game with my dad, and that's a cool vibe. And that was the biggest game for the Lions, I think, in 5 decades. It felt like last night. And that felt like a playoff game last night. One team, obviously, they're the 5 seed now. That was between the two. Whatever team won got the 1 seed and a bye. Whatever team lost got the 5th seed and had to go on the road to play the Rams. So I wanted to start with the Lions. This turnaround is just, I don't know if I've ever seen a coach fit a city or fit a team. Well, there's a guy that comes to mind. Than Dan Campbell does. Because he brings grit, he brings toughness, the energy, the focus. He's being the ex-player. Mike Kesnick always talks about this. He's just the man, and he's a badass. And you see it with his teams. They are just physical. They're tough. They're resilient. There's grit. There's toughness, which society does need because we got a bunch of pussies out here, like Dana Wood talked about. We're going to run these ass motherfuckers over, okay? But my point is, I just, everything about the Lions, I love Brad Holmes. I talked to my buddy Derek Solomon. I had to give a shout out to him last night. I was texting him throughout the game. And just how hard they play. And they got Anzalone back last night. What a great vibe this Lions thing is. Now, you got to see in the offseason because there's going to be guys, there's jobs open for jobs. It's funny that both coordinators last night are on the Lions. They're the best ones. So I was very intrigued last night by the Lions. I was going into that game going, I think Detroit's going to win it, better roster. Minnesota's got a good one, but not quite on Detroit's level, not Green Bay's level yet. So Detroit's still the class in NFC North until proven otherwise. But I just was so impressed with Detroit last night. I'm going to go back to that point I just made about I've never seen a coach fit a team better. I would say John Gruden, who I love, and I'm a big fan of Chucky and the Piston. I kind of act like him sometimes. But his love for football, the way that he's so popular. I mean, I remember I never said this out loud, but I've been to like a bunch of Raider games, Chief game, Lion game, on the road, and they have got Chucky dolls, you name it, everywhere. And John Gruden's like revered. And I have that feeling with Dan Campbell. Like, that's how much they love this guy in Detroit. Kind of like Gruden that first go-around in Oakland because it fit. It was an all-time great fit. You had the Raiders have always been rebels and badasses and all that stuff in the 70s. And it fit with Gruden. And I feel like with Dan Campbell, I feel the same way. But congrats to the Lions last night. They stamped their foot in. Watch out. Here we are. All the people bitching. You shouldn't have played all your starters. Wah. No, fuck that. They're going to play them because this is what they do. They don't fuck around and find out. They fuck around, and you are going to find out later on. So, very impressed with the Lions last night. With all these injuries going on. I mean, a lot of teams would have folded. Not this team, not the way they're constructed. And I just am happy for them. And we'll see revisions history on that trade with Goff and Stafford, excuse me. So we'll see what happens. But I was very impressed with Detroit last night. I knew they were going to win. That was one of my picks going into this weekend. So I was happy for Detroit last night, getting the 1 seed, getting some rest. They need it. If there's one team that probably needs it in this playoffs, either conference, I'm going with the Lions because they got too many guys on IR right now. But they got some momentum going into it. The other thing I wanted to talk about, Minnesota, I want to get to them. You guys know I'm a Sam Darnold fan. I've been a fan for a long time, since his UFC days. And last night was not good for Sammy. And the old shit that I saw early on with the Jets, the shit I saw at times this year, kind of crept up last night. Now, I'm not going to burn him all, okay? He had a bad game. It felt like a playoff atmosphere last night, and he played tight and he played, not loose and free like he usually is. But I will say this with that defense of the Lions, they had whatever game plan they had, they should put that in the fucking Lion Hall of Detroit. Or Allen Park is where I think their headquarters is at. But they need to figure that out because they shut down and stymied that offense of the Vikings that has been scoring at rampant with Jefferson and Addison, Hawkinson, and Aaron Jones. And so they just were scoring in bunches. And they shut them down last night. And I got to give them credit. I think they said on the broadcast last night, Aaron Glenn just said, fuck it, we're going to throw the kitchen sink at you. We're going to play, coverage. We're going to play tight man-to-man. We're going to try and rush for. And they got to him last night. And while I do think the Cam Robinson addition did help Minnesota in the short term, not having Christian Darrisaw is huge. And you saw it last night. And Sammy just was pressured like 60% of his dropbacks. They were just sending the house at him. And Sammy, the one thing I have a problem with him is he hangs on the ball a lot. And sometimes a little too long. And it's kind of a risk-reward thing, man. Like, the risk is a bad, and then the reward is get a bunch of big plays and touchdowns. So, the only thing that I would worry about if I'm a Viking fan, and I get keeping Sammy, but if he struggles again next week in LA against the Rams, and I don't know, because Minnesota's got to get some revenge, because they lost to the Rams, if we recall, during that game. So, you got to do something, okay? But I will say they match up well against this Rams secondary, the Vikings. So, in terms of personnel and all that stuff. So, I still think Minnesota's a very well-coached football team. And I think they get to where I've always seen the Minnesota Vikings. They win a couple games, they hit that ceiling. And it sucks. Like, if Detroit was in your division, like, I could see them maybe going farther. But it's just going to be hard with Detroit, man. They're an unstoppable force right now. They're balling. And it's not to knock the Vikings. Like, they're well-coached. I love Kevin O'Connell. I like what he's done for Sam Darnold. But they just ran into a buzzsaw last night. This happens. Rivalry games, you get intense, and it felt like a black and blue game, and I'm all for it last night. But then the wheels just kind of fell off. So, no fault of your own. It's kind of devastating. You lost. You didn't get the number one seed, obviously, with the skull chant going down. But you do get to play against the Rams. I'll give you guys my picks in a couple days on those playoff games this weekend. But I'm going to roll with the Vikings in that spot. I just think better team. I know that Rams have more experience, but I just have a gut feeling Minnesota kind of finds a way to get that W. So that was my reaction to that game. So to recap, Lions, great job, got the number one seed. What an accomplishment for the organization to where they were to where they are now, to be the butt of jokes, to get your ass beat down, bullied, and now you're the bully. So love it. Now go seal the deal because you got there last year and you didn't seal against the Niners. Now it's your turn, Detroit. Go finish the fucking thing. In Minnesota, devastating, but I think you guys got a chance to beat the Rams next week and go a little far in the playoffs. Couple other games I want to touch on. It's great having you guys in tonight. I kind of was watching Bears-Packers, as I always do. I always watch Green Bay games for my Raiders play. I just can't believe you lost to the Bears. I mean, they were favored by 10 at home. But sometimes these rivalry games, and I've learned this, they just don't go the way they should be. And listen, the Bears kicked our ass. Like, kicked the Packers' ass, fair and square. And listen, for the Bears, like, listen, you had something to hang your hat on. You start 2025 off with a W. You haven't had it in a while. So good for you. But I got to get bad news, though. I think it's time to start over. I don't know about Ryan Poles. Like, he's 14-36. I was looking at a stat today. He's got one Pro Bowl player. I just think this is more of McCaskey and Warren's issue than it is with Poles. Poles deserves some blame, no doubt about it. Keeping Eberflus for so fucking long and all that stuff. That I understand. But to me, I blame Kevin Warren on this, who's, by the way, I'm not going to go into it. He's a jerk-off, okay? Dickhead. For canceling Big Ten football. And the McCaskies, just George, stay out of it. Shut the fuck up. You don't know what you're doing, okay? So there's a lot of systemic problems with the Bears, not named coach. Now, could they bring in a Mike Vrabel or somebody like that? Absolutely. I said it before. They need a toughness and alpha in that city, Chicago. Tough, physical city. But I had an epiphany the other night. I'm starting to feel like the Bears, to me, are like Pittsburgh. They're defensive cultures. I know Pittsburgh always goes to the playoffs and shit. They always get bounced, but I feel like I'm watching the same movie. Defensive-centric cultures, offense, now, Pittsburgh was better on offense before Big Ben, but you guys kind of get my point, the parallels to both those franchises. So we shall see what happens. And for Green Bay, I'm a little concerned. Where's Jordan Love at? You're kind of banged up right now. So we got to find out. We got to find out and see what's going on with that. But congrats to the Bears. They got a dub. Now the offseason starts for Chicago. And we'll see. It's going to be interesting. I thought Caleb played well today. Made good throws. Was highly efficient. He's always going to have some accuracy problems, hit and miss. It's kind of how he is. But I think if you're a Bear fan, this has just been a shitty year from hell. I mean, last time he won a playoff game was 14 years ago. So there's a lot more problems there than I think just finding a great offensive coach or finding a great defensive coach or finding a culture guy. I think the Bears, that's an interesting thing. Green Bay gets in the playoffs. You do play the Eagles, but I've seen this movie. I've seen this movie before. 2010, nobody thought Green Bay would win in Philly, and what happened? They won in Philly. Now, I think it's different this time around, but I do want to get revenge on the fucking Eagles because I swear to God, if they play another game in Brazil, it still angers me. I'm going to be irritated. Never do that again on a soccer field. It was bullshit, sloppy product. Now, it was entertaining, no doubt, two of the better teams in the NFC. But you got to do better, NFL. I'm talking to you. So, last game I want to touch on was I kind of was looking back before between Panthers, Falcons, and I'm not a fan either. But I'm just so encouraged by both quarterbacks and what the futures hold. Now, Atlanta's is a little bit weird because you got the Kirk Cousins nonsense. What are you going to do? Whatever. But I'll say this with Carolina, you got your guy. You got your guy. And what do I know? Dave Canales, he's done this 3 times. Like I said a couple weeks ago. Did it with Baker, did it with Geno, and now he's doing it with Bryce Young. This guy knows what he's doing. And early on in the season, I went, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know. So, but I am so impressed with Bryce Young, the way he's bounced back, the way he's had resolve. He's gone through adversity. I've always made that argument. Guys that kind of never have to face it, high school, college, all that, have a hard time when they get the NFL because there's adversity that's going to hit. It's not going to go all sunshine and rainbows, okay? And Bryce Young has owned up to that. I think he owned up to the benching. He owned up to what he had to do better. Kind of did some self-reflection, and you could see it. Now, is he ever going to be a top 15 guy? No, but I think he's really, really good. And they have pieces on offense to build with. Keep building the offensive line. Keep adding more pieces. And maybe Carolina could be a sneaky playoff team next year. Watch out. We got to see what the draft hits. And then I want to flip over to Atlanta. You guys know how big of a Michael Penix fan I was coming out of that draft. I saw him at the Combine. I wish the Raiders would have taken him. But I am so happy for him. Their offense seems more fluider, more focused, more driven. And Mike just throwing that ball. I could watch that for days. There's that song by Benny Benassi. I could watch it for a lifetime in my favorite movie. That's what it feels like when I'm watching Mike Penix. I could watch it for a lifetime. That arm, the delivery, the crispiness of the arm. He's lefty. He's a badass, slinging that pill. But I just, both these franchises going forward, I do think Carolina's got a little bit more momentum. And before the year started, I'm looking back at my notes here. I did pick Carolina 4th, but it wasn't because I didn't know with Canales how that would work. But clearly I was wrong. But yeah, man, I'm just impressed with Atlanta and Carolina. That was a very good high-scoring affair. Carolina ended up getting the dub in overtime, but it was a great game nonetheless. So that's all I have for tonight, guys. Hopefully you guys like the video. Subscribe, share to your friends. Got more content coming out. We got a great weekend of college football. Notre Dame Thursday night. More college this weekend. NFL playoffs. Let's fucking go. I am so excited. Woo! Hope you guys have a great night. Stay tuned throughout the week. I got more content. Have a great night.